Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Live with me, JJ Hardy, and Chris Pienkowski. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing great, JJ. How are you?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm excited to get into this topic after I do the little promotional stuff. But I mean, I'm getting some good feedback for season 2 already, and it sounds like based off of our conversation before this, you are as well. And
Yeah,
so I'm excited to make this stuff happen.
me too. Let's go. Do your promo stuff. Let's get into it.
Okay, I call this the gaggy stuff. So so here we go. A Leadership Live is brought to you by Victory Leadership Coaching, home of the Warrior Leadership Certification course and the First Time Leaders course for new managers. Don't forget to check us out at victoryleadershipcoaching.com. You can also buy our books at amazon.com. The books are Why Organizations Should Develop Their Leaders, a pocket guide, and Warrior Leadership, the journey from coach to entrepreneur. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to all of our videos, both on my channel and on Chris's channel, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, all of the above, and make sure that we keep the conversation going and grow this so that more people have access to it. And that is it for the promotional stuff. So today's topic, and I'll ask you what you think about it first. So we're talking about positional leadership versus relationship building. And you brought this up as a good topic because a lot of people they don't really understand the value of the relationship versus the positional leadership. So Chris, what do you think about that?
Man, this is such a great topic because it's a trap that a lot of people fall into. They get that promotion and they think that automatically people need to listen to them. They need to do what they say simply because they're in a management or leadership role. And while to an extent, like you do have some authority based on your leadership position, that authority only goes so far. It's the relationships that really take you from, 10 miles an hour to 100 miles an hour. So I think a lot of people, me included, when I was, a young idiot in early like leadership roles, I relied probably more on the positional kind of authority that I had than I did the relationships. I didn't realize the power of relationships when it comes to leading people. And I had a couple wake up calls, and I know the strength of the relationships now, and that's really what drives it.
Well, and a lot of people, some develop the maturity to understand that. Some people don't. What I will definitely say about that is, I came from a military background, and then I've worked a lot in the civilian workforce as well. But as you move up in the ranks, that's why the military focuses so much on leadership development, because what they don't understand is a lot of people, they move up and then they get that superiority complex, and
Right.
they start trying to ram things down people's throat. And that's important, actually, to start off that way, because you learn a lot about what to do wrong.
Yeah.
And when you have that regular leadership development, and then you have somebody saying, well, this, I see what you're doing, and it's going to work only for so long, because you're going to start losing all of these people if you don't start to lead them instead of forcing them to do the work.
You're
Yes,
right.
they have to respect your position, but if they don't respect you, then as soon as you walk out of the room, these jokers are going to go into relaxed mode, and they're not going to care about the job, and they're just going to start slacking off.
That's right. When you rely on that positional authority when you're in a leadership role, whether you're, a team leader, a a division leader, a company president, doesn't matter. When you rely solely on I'm the boss, this is why, so therefore do it, you're going to get grumbling, you're going to get half-assed results. And like you said, as soon as you walk out of the room, as soon as you take your eye off the ball, then they take their foot off the gas pedal.
Yep.
So, as opposed to you build a relationship with these people and you clearly communicate why we're doing something, what it is we're trying to accomplish. And, the one thing that I say about leadership is as you get promoted, right, rise up through the ranks, your position really becomes that of a problem solver. You're just becoming a different level of a problem solver as you mature in your leadership career. You're not you're not the person that's just barking orders. In fact, that should never be the case, but you're empowering your people. The greater your stature of leadership allows you to empower more and let your people execute. It doesn't it doesn't put you further in the driver's seat, and that's a big misconception that a lot of people have.
Yep. And all of this is really the difference between managing, because by the way, it is a skill to
Yeah,
manage, going from that execution level to being somebody who has to make sure stuff is getting done all the way across the board. That is a skill. I'm not trying to take away from that. But when you're considered a leader, and that's not to be confused with having a leadership position, because that's just a widely used term that goes all the way across the board. No, once you actually start leading your people, you get they work harder when you're
yeah,
not around, because it's not that they're trying to please you, but they actually have, it feels like a mission. And it's something that you're empowered to do because you want to do it, not because you have somebody making you feel horrible and holding you to deadlines and then shaming you when you don't get them done, and all the things that go along with somebody who just is that task manager all the way across the board. And so when you feel cared for, like you actually have somebody at the top who is trying to nurture you through the process, instead of taking that post pounder and just shoving things down to the ground level all the time, that doesn't work. The leadership part is building a relationship with each person so that they feel comfortable with you. And by the way, regardless of how crappy the job is, if you build a culture surrounded in leadership, there will always be good communication. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to keep people in that position for longer, because when you don't have that culture, people will leave.
yeah,
And oftentimes they don't necessarily leave the job, they leave the leadership.
that's right. That's absolutely true. And you'd mentioned two things there. Communication, right? Which is communication and relationships go hand in hand. They're foundational to leadership in general. But you also mentioned the word mission. And I always like to say that words matter. So, we had talked first episode of the new season, about this hiatus that we had. And part of it was driven by me taking a new role. And one of the things that I did kind of early on was I came in right before the beginning of the fourth quarter. And previously, the company used to do like quarterly rocks, right? What are your goals? It's an EOS term. We're going to do rocks. But I switched it up and said, we're getting rid of rocks. We now have quarterly missions. The reason that I chose that word is because people can rally around a mission. They can't rally around a rock, and I think that I'm not trying to be negative towards EOS, but I think that there's some negative connotation of a rock. Like, man, I got to carry this thing for 90 days to get it done, versus a mission that has a clear objective and an outcome that we're all striving for. So words matter. And when you can really excite people around something, talk about what the intent is, what are we trying to accomplish, and then get out of their way, they own that mission, as opposed to like carrying a freaking rock up a hill for 90 days.
Yeah, and you're right. And actually, one of our viewers here, Jeffrey Knight, he I wish I could put it up on the board, but it didn't pop up on my system that I'm using here. It's actually on LinkedIn. He said, and I'd like to unpack this, Chris, but he said managing is transactional and leadership is relational. And that goes directly with the topic that we have right now. So a transactional relationship, that's kind of what I was going into earlier. And you've also talked a little bit about it, where, it's that very task focused, it's almost a tit for tat. I will square you away with giving you the knowledge for what you need to do, and then you just go do it. And that's what the transactional relationship looks like. And when that is your day to day, just imagine your current position, or even the viewers here, imagine your current position. If that's how every single day is, or if that is the way your day is right now, it doesn't have to be that way. You can definitely have more of a conversation, not only with the people that work for you, but with your boss about stuff. And it doesn't have to, you have influence, even if it comes from higher up. So if that's all your boss is saying to you, well, create that dialogue and make it more. And that transactional relationship doesn't work because it's boring and it's dry and it's not personal. People want to be somewhere where they feel valued, and a transactional relationship just makes you feel like you're another cog in the wheel, and that doesn't work. And Jeff, you made a good point when you said leadership is relational, because that's that conversation and keeping it from being dry and making you feel like you're being valued. There has to be a relationship. And I've said it many times, and I got this phrase from when I was serving in the military, but that doesn't mean you have to take these people out to drink on the weekend. This just means that you have to establish a rapport and get to know each other a little bit so that you understand the needs of one another. Your boss should understand your needs just as much as you should understand his. Your employees should understand your needs just as much as you understand theirs. And if that relationship is not happening and it's dry and it's a transactional relationship, then things are going to fall apart and you're going to have a high turnover rate. And, people are going to make mistakes because they're just going through the motions every day. And you don't want that.
No. And, what I'll add on to that is when you look at the transactional, piece of this, if you think about it in accounting terms, right? When you look at a balance sheet, you have like credits and debits. And at the end of the day, things need to kind of flesh out. So when you're going through your leadership or your management in a transactional way, then you're always ending up at the same place at the end of the day with basically zero balance. However, when you take it into the relational side, now when you let people execute because everyone's clear on what needs to get done, and you give people that latitude to move and do what they need to do, now you're actually making deposits of leadership capital into your bank so that when things get tough and you need to ask, hey, you know what? We need to pull an extra couple hours this week in order to get this done. You can make those withdrawals from your leadership capital bank, and people are going to be more willing to do it because there's some reserves. They've built up that currency with you that comes from the relationship. Whereas when it's a tit for tat transactional, man, there's nothing to trade against. So you're right. You have to build up those relationships so that, number one, people trust you. You trust them. They know that you have their back. If something goes wrong, just this week, something similar happened. I was asked by a downstream leader about doing something, and we hashed it out for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I said, you got the green light, move on with that. And he said, do you think that's going to be okay with the CEO? And I said, yes, because if there's any blowback, I'll take it. You don't have to worry about it. You go execute because you're within the lines of what needs to be accomplished. I'm giving you the green light. I've got the authority to do that. But if there's pushback, guess what? My authority also turns into my accountability. And I'm going to say, I gave that order for him to move. And, I'll take whatever consequence it is. But that's also leadership, and that's building relationships.
Yeah, people need to know that you have their back, and sometimes saying that you have their back is different than actually doing it. And that is one thing that I've noticed, is that people talk a big game, but when push comes to shove, they don't actually, they don't actually have the person's back. One phrase that I would always add to that, a similar conversation that I would have throughout the years, is that, hey, look, if somebody has an issue with that, then just have them call me.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That takes all of the pressure off of that person. And as soon as they start getting a ton of kickback, well, guess what? I'm using my position to make sure I'm squaring everybody away. I'm here for you. Just, step back from that a little bit and put me in the line of fire, because I don't mind, not just giving guidance, but holding myself accountable for that guidance. And, and what that does is it builds trust. And that was, and I know you had that on the tip of your tongue the whole time you were saying it, but it's important, because if we're talking about relationship building versus positional leadership, trust, communication, they go hand in hand, because they're not going to communicate with you unless they trust you. Right. And that's really the biggest part. So say you're taking a leadership position at a new company, just like you just got done doing a few months back. Mm-hmm. The very first thing you do is you get to know people, and you have to earn that level of trust that you need to be able to make this stuff happen like what you just got done discussing. If you don't, then people will chuckle you right off the phone. I mean, they'll nod their head, and then as soon as you get off the phone, they're going to go talk to whoever's sitting next to them at the other desk and start saying, "Oh, this new guy thinks he's tough shit or something. He's saying that he's saying this and that and the other." But when you earn that level of trust, then they're like, "Oh yeah. Then they're going to get off the phone, and what they say behind closed doors matters more than what they say when they're talking to you. And they're going to say, man, this new boss we have over here, he's really great. He not only told everybody in the very beginning that he has our back, but he actually does. He's going to square us all away. And I appreciate that.
And you know what? That's where the power of your position comes in, because just like you said, if I could say to that person, you know what, if anyone's got a problem with the decision I made, have them call me. Then now that's where you use the power of your position. It's not to impose your will on the people that you lead. It's to let the people that you lead know that I've got your back. And you tell anyone that in this case, shit rolls uphill and it needs to stop at my desk, and I'll take care of it.
Yeah. But you really built a great culture in your company when you don't have to do that. And you won't after a while, because even though you may say that, people are going to be like, man, Chris is awesome. I don't want anything to roll his way. I got this.
Right.
And that's when you built the culture that you need in your company. And I'm sure that if it's not already there, because you're in the position that you're in, it'll get there super fast if it's not there already.
That's the goal.
Well, it takes time, I've always said that when I get into a new position, it takes people 90 days just to get to know me.
Yeah.
And then that next 90 days, that's when things can start shifting. And then the next 90 to 120 days, that's when the culture building starts. Yeah. And so it's really, really important. I guess the next 6 months will be really, really important in that job, because whatever is under your sphere of influence is going to be severely impacted by whatever you decide to do to impact it. And that's what's so wonderful about being in a leadership position.
Yeah. It's, your job as a leader should be to help people grow, to solve problems so that they can move forward and execute on what they need to do, and to make tough decisions. Your job as a leader is to be the tiebreaker. When there's a scuffle, you're the person that needs to step in and figure out what's going on here. All right, everybody, let's rally back and continue moving forward. This is the direction that we're going to take. So, the other thing too is I used to, and I still do, talk about this framework of high impact leadership. And it has 5 principles. The 4th principle is conviction and caring. So the conviction part is understanding who you are, what you stand for, the core values of the organization, making sure that everyone, is maintaining the standards. But then the caring part is the genuine, hey, how's your family? How you doing? I know that you were on a red eye last night. And why the hell are you in the office at 8 o'clock this morning? You need to get a little rest. So it's those things go so far from a leadership standpoint. That also reinforces that you had people's back. It's not always like, have someone call me. It's those conversations that people say, wow, I'm comfortable going to JJ with something because I know that he has my best interests at heart, and that he's not going to do something that's going to jeopardize me. So the caring piece of leadership is so important. I'm just now going through for a second time the book Call Sign Chaos by Jim Mattis.
Oh,
and awesome book, man. Like, he details, it's like a biography basically, or an autobiography. He talks about growing up in the Pacific Southwest or Northwest, all the way up to his time as SecDef under Trump, under the first presidency. But everything along the way, his rise to a 4-star in the Marine Corps. And he lays down some leadership principles, but he often talks about caring and how important it is that you care for your troops on the front line, all the way up to your most senior subordinate leader, and how that reinforces the relationship that you have as a leader.
Well, and from a servant leadership perspective, it's really, really difficult to tell somebody when you first come into a job that you have to automatically care for every people that works surrounding you in whatever position that you're in. I mean, that's a tall order. I just met these guys. How am I supposed to do that? Well, guess what? We were told this in the morning when we would go in to do our exercise at 6:30 for PT. Sometimes you got to fake it to make it. False motivation is better than no motivation. And when it comes to when you first take a job, that false servant leadership, it's like building a muscle. Well, if I want to build a relationship with these people, I have to care about these people. So I have to tell myself every morning that I got to care about these people, and you're building a muscle. And then you start walking around and talking to people, and you're getting to know them. And then, because you're telling yourself that it's so important to care for these people, now you're building the relationships, and you actually do. Yep. And when you start building all those relationships through the conversations and the deadlines that you're assisting people in meeting, instead of just smacking them with a big hammer and all those other things, you'd be surprised how quick those relationships get built. And by the way, it creates a strong workforce, especially if you encourage everyone else to do the same thing within their sphere of influence, because that's what makes you successful as you grow in management. It's not what it's the relationships that you build. So people expect you to be able to help them, but if you can't help them with a specific thing, if you have a rapport with everyone else, you can always pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe Snuffy down there is really struggling. I have never dealt with this before. Can you please square him away? done. So
Right.
you didn't walk away and say, I'll try to help you figure this out. You actually took action to that, and you followed through. And so the relationships, it's networking. It's all this other stuff that you're supposed to be doing in the outside world anyway to make yourself successful, but you have to do it within your certain business, your specific business ecosystem, so that everybody can get what they need at any time. It's making yourself an authority through relationships. And if you continue to do that, you're going to have no problems in your position. Well, I shouldn't say that. You'll have no problems that you can't solve within your position.
Yeah, relationships go so far, and you also have to have relationships where you're able to butt heads a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Because when you have a strong relationship, you and another person, like you and I, can disagree, and we could say, "All right, look, the way that we accomplish this goal, right? We're in season 2 now, and we want to do certain things with season 2 for Leadership Live. You and I can passionately have a conversation and not necessarily agree on our action steps. We agree on the end result. We can work through what's going on here in order to get here. So that's the other power of relationships, is that you've got to encourage your people to give you candid feedback. When you have a good relationship, they are more open to giving you candid feedback and not being afraid for their job or getting busted down or whatever, because you open that door to them. You say, hey JJ, I want you to shoot straight with me. And you know, unless you try to attack me physically, you don't have anything to worry about here, because we have a mutual goal of achieving this. So if something's out of line, if you from the front line see that what I'm thinking isn't going to work, then you need to let me know and not let me lead us down the wrong road. So just being able to build relationships so that you can argue and then come to a better conclusion is like worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and that's part of setting expectations too on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Every touch point you have, if you find out that there's a problem, just encouraging people to speak up about it, and letting them know that, you know, punishment doesn't come first. Punishment is not even really punishment in this situation, because if the remediation is additional support, then really all we're trying to do here is build an open communication so that we can solve as many problems as possible.
Yes.
And in business, that's what it is. It doesn't matter if you're in the paper business, or if you're in the lawn care business, or if you're in construction, or if you're in corporate America where everybody works in an office. It doesn't really matter. What a business does is they solve problems. A business wouldn't exist if they didn't have a problem to solve. And so it's only inherent that when you take the internals of the organization, well, you're going to be solving problems every day, even internal and external. And if you can't establish that sort of rapport that you can keep open communication, then what problem is going to get solved efficiently? None.
Right. None.
People will be in their own box solving problems at their level, and probably not even doing it the right way. And it turns into a little bit of chaos. And that's why some places are absolutely horrible to work for.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it.
Yes, me too. I've been a party to it, which is why I have my own business now, to be honest with you. I couldn't find one that had a great set of communication top down, or even wanted to influence anything like that. And that's really, really sad, because everyone's just going through the hustle and bustle of every day. Oh, something new, we can't do that.
Right.
And so people get stuck in that mindset of doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking that that's the only way it can be.
Yeah.
And that is not productive at all. But that is kind of the end here of this episode. Chris, do you have anything you want to share with the audience before we pop off? Before I say my little words of wisdom?
Just for anyone who is familiar with South Park, and especially like old South Park, there was an episode with Eric Cartman who he was like a junior policeman, and he was just driving around and like, respect my authority. And then everyone behind his back was like, Cartman is a jackass. Don't be Cartman. Build relationships, and then people will respect your authority. Don't tell them to respect you because of the position you're in, because that will backfire on you all the time.
I love it. And so that's perfect, because I was going to back that up with a small snippet from the NCO Creed. And I was a sergeant for a long time at many different levels when I served in the Army. And part of the NCO Creed is that I will not use my grade or position to attain pleasure, profit, or personal safety. And so, I mean, there's so much more to it than that. It's a full essay, really, it is. But when you think of that in positional relationship versus relationship building, that's basically saying I'm keeping what I want out of this. It doesn't matter what position I hold. I am here for the betterment of everybody. And when you go through your day-to-day thinking that, and then you focus on relationship building and making other people win, helping other people win, then the likelihood of success in an organization is really going to be better. And by the way, this goes outside of work. If you do this in your personal life, it also works the same way, because you just want to see people win. You don't want to have a bad relationship. And if you're that person that's just Scrooging your way through life, then I'm sorry for you. But that's what this whole episode is about. So I'm glad we had an opportunity to talk about it, Chris. Thank you for joining me for another episode. The next episode is going to be called Not All Relationships Are Created Equal. It's going to be in exactly 2 weeks from today. We're going to be doing it on, what is that, the 21st?
21st.
We're going to be doing it the 21st, same time, same bat channel. And please watch us. It's going to be a great time. We encourage everybody to engage in conversations during the live stream. And thank you, Jeff, for your wonderful comment. That gave us about 5 minutes of conversation there. But if you like this information, please like it. Subscribe to whatever channel you see this, whether it's Spotify or LinkedIn. Make sure you share this with your audience if it's that valuable to you. But the most important thing is, even if you don't get to show up live, comment below, keep the conversation going. Chris, it's been wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And hopefully we'll reply to your comment or see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep. We will see you on the 21st of December. Everybody,